I'm in Gwanghwamun, the heart of Seoul. As you can see on the map, I'm in a plaza near the Royal Palace. Seoul has been the capital of Korea for over 500 years. Among them, this is the most central space in Seoul, a space that all Koreans agree is the most central. It's a place where you can admire the harmony of modern skyscrapers and ancient palaces. This plaza holds significant meaning for the citizens of Seoul. It serves as a space for citizens, festivals, and protests. The purpose of my visit was to see the water festival held here. If you look straight ahead, you'll see a statue. This is the statue of Admiral Yi Sun-sin. He is the most revered figure among Koreans. He is a historical figure who, in 1592, defeated 300 Japanese ships, with just 12 ships, during the Japanese invasion of Korea. He won all 23 naval battles. The reason Koreans revere him is not only because of his remarkable naval achievements, but also because of his deep love for the people. The Korean king, jealous of Yi Sun-sin's popularity among the people, absurdly forced him to be stripped of his generalship and tortured him. When the Japanese army faced the threat of complete occupation of Korea, the king summoned Yi Sun-sin back and appointed him general. And with only 12 ships remaining, Yi Sun-sin performed a miracle. After he was finally restored to his position, the Japanese retreated, and the nation was able to defend itself. You may have seen children playing in the fountain in front of the Yi Sun-sin statue. Originally, there wasn't a fountain there. It was added during the square's redevelopment in 2022. It was intentionally designed so that children could enjoy playing in the water in front of the statue. Previously, the statue was viewed with a sense of reverence, but now, with children playing in front of it, parents can directly experience the peace they wouldn't have enjoyed without Admiral Yi Sun-sin. If you look to the right, you can see a downhill path behind the trees. That's the entrance to Gwanghwamun subway station. There's an LED display installed on the wall along the downhill path. It's beautiful in the evening. And you can see trees planted on both sides. They're all different types of trees. This was intentional. The designer of this plaza said he did it so that walking through it wouldn't feel boring. If all the trees were the same, it would be consistent, but it would get boring quickly. And before 2022, there were no trees here. On a hot summer day like today, there was no shade to escape the sun. This road I'm walking on now used to be a car-only road. There was no plaza here, and it was a 20-lane, ultra-large, car-only road. As the city gradually transformed into a pedestrian-oriented city, the number of lanes was reduced, resulting in its current appearance. As a result, this area is one of the most congested in Korea. As you can see from the surrounding area, it's a popular area not only for tourists, but also for people working in high-rise buildings. Vehicle traffic is bound to be heavy. Therefore, some drivers have expressed dissatisfaction with the reduced number of lanes. However, the City Hall's position seems to be to encourage the use of well-developed public transportation. Gwanghwamun Square is a key space, and various events are held there regularly. That's why I always enjoy visiting here. The space always transforms with new events. Last time, an outdoor library was created here, and an event related to the drama Squid Game was also held. The building visible in the foreground is the Sejong Center for the Performing Arts. This multi-purpose theater was built in 1978. It hosts a variety of performances, including orchestral, ballet, musicals, traditional Korean dance, and plays. You can see another statue erected. That statue is of King Sejong the Great. He is a figure revered by Koreans as much as Admiral Yi Sun-sin. He created Hangul, the writing system used by Koreans today. The history of Hangul is relatively short compared to the alphabet and Arabic script. It was created in 1443. The purpose of this writing system was to make it easy for all citizens to learn and use writing. That's why it was designed to be incredibly easy to learn. Sounds with similar mouth shapes were given similar letter shapes. For example, if you pronounce sa and ja, you'll notice the similar mouth shapes. In Korean, sa is sa and ja is ja. This was intentionally designed to make similar pronunciations similar in letter shape. It created the world's easiest writing system to learn. As you know, in the Middle Ages, reading was a privilege reserved for the upper classes, such as the nobility. King Sejong wanted everyone to be able to read. He knew it would greatly contribute to the nation's development. However, the Korean aristocracy at the time fiercely opposed this. They hated losing their privileges. Even when the Hangul system was completed, it took a long time for it to become established due to opposition from those with vested interests. Looking to the left, it looks like they're preparing a water slide. Unfortunately, it wasn't available on the day I visited. Looking to the right, you'll see a bus stop. The bus stop is quite large. This is where the headquarters of major companies in Seoul are concentrated. Seoul's economic districts are broadly divided into three: Jongno, Yeouido, and Gangnam. Of these, Jongno is this area. Because so many companies are located here, many people commute from other cities. Since housing costs in Seoul are so high, many people live in other cities but work in Seoul. I used to commute here from a nearby city. The trip alone took a whopping 2 hours. Including the time it took to get home, it took a total of 4 hours. Looking back, I realize how I worked back then. Korea's social problem is that most jobs are concentrated in Seoul. Despite the abundance of jobs, there's a shortage of affordable housing. As a result, ordinary people like me have to endure enormous travel times. Recently, infrastructure has been built to connect Seoul and neighboring cities with express subway lines. This has further exacerbated the population concentration in Seoul. With real estate prices so exorbitant, Koreans are not thinking about marriage or having children. This is a truly serious problem. To the left, you'll see a section of the square covered in grass. That grass marks the site of government offices that once stood there during the Middle Ages. During the Middle Ages, this area was called Yukjo Street, meaning the street of the 6 administrative departments. Front, you can see the palace entrance, and the administrative departments were located here near the palace. Behind the grass, you can see a tall building. That building is the government complex. Just as government offices were located here during the Middle Ages, so too are the major administrative departments today. Behind the palace in the foreground is the president's office. You can see why this area is called the heart of Seoul. The historical significance of the palace, the headquarters of major corporations, and the current major administrative organizations are all concentrated here. Looking straight ahead, you can see Gyeongbokgung Palace. The large gate directly in front is Gwanghwamun Gate. There's a mountain behind the palace, and the entrance was built facing south. It was intentionally built with a mountain behind it. The reason for this is related to Korea's climate. In winter, cold winds blow from the north in Korea. So the building was built with a mountain behind it to provide protection from the wind. And in front of the palace, there used to be a river. Now the river has been buried and turned into a plaza. In Korea, summer winds blow from the south. The palace was built with a river in the south to allow the wind to pass through and bring in cool air. Furthermore, windows facing south allow sunlight to enter the building for the longest period of time. This optimal location was sought when building the palace. That's why Koreans highly value houses with mountains in the north and rivers in the south, and their prices are also quite high. Most of the homes built in these optimal locations are luxury homes. To the right, you'll see a fenced-in platform, the height of a staircase. This area was only recently restored in 2023. Building it using traditional methods was virtually impossible at the time. This is because a subway line runs directly below the path I'm walking on. The stones would have to be stacked to the height of the steps, and without modern groundwork, the tunnel beneath would inevitably collapse. Therefore, it's not entirely restored using traditional methods. The Gwanghwamun Gate, visible in the foreground, was also restored after being destroyed during the Korean War in 1955. Not only this gate, but the entire palace complex has been repeatedly destroyed by fire and rebuilt numerous times over the centuries due to war. I'll pass through Gwanghwamun Gate and enter the palace grounds. This video doesn't offer a full tour of the palace. There's an entrance fee of about $3 to enter the palace. I visited here around 5:30 p.m. on a Saturday. It was just about the time the palace closed. It's always packed when I visit. Maybe because it's getting close to closing time, there aren't many people this time. And it was blisteringly hot, probably because it was summer. The temperature was probably around 38 degrees Celsius. I was sweating even when I was still. It's really not easy to tour the palace in this weather. Even if you don't go inside, there's plenty to see around here. In this video, I mostly walked around the area around the palace rather than inside. When I visited here before, I always saw it bustling with people, so seeing it so empty feels strange. Still, the lack of people today makes it a great place to take souvenir photos. Entering the palace, I saw people wearing hanbok, the traditional Korean attire. Those wearing hanbok can enter the palace for free. Most tourists rent hanbok at the hanbok rental shop near the palace. This is the western part of the palace. The entrance gate, where I was standing earlier, is on the left. Looking straight ahead, you can see a traditional two-story building in the distance. That building is Gonjeonjeon, the central building of the palace. It wasn't the king's office, but rather used for state ceremonies. It was used for royal inaugurations and to welcome foreign envoys. If you keep walking along the path I took, you'll arrive at the National Folk Museum of Korea. Since it's a museum built within a palace, there are countless museums and art galleries surrounding it. It seems likely that many museums were built around this area because most tourists visiting Seoul make a point of visiting the palace. There are 5 national museums around the palace alone. If you include private galleries, there are even more. For your information, the Brazilian embassy in Korea is across the street behind me. There are also many foreign embassies around the palace. This is because the president's office is located nearby. The tall building you see in the foreground is the museum. Many people misunderstand this building. In fact, it combines the aesthetics of traditional Korean architecture with Western architectural techniques. It's not a building built entirely in the traditional Korean style. That's why it was quite controversial when it was built. It was because a building within the palace wasn't built in the traditional style. Ultimately, this building is scheduled to be demolished in 2030 and rebuilt in the style of the original palace. These buildings, located to the right of the museum, recreate Korea in the 1970s. On the right, you'll see a replica of an old Korean elementary school building. If you look at the floor in front, you'll see a drawing. It's a drawing of the Squid Game, the final game featured in the drama Squid Game. The drawing resembles a squid, hence the name Squid Game. It's a traditional game enjoyed by Koreans as children. I've never played this game myself, so I'm not sure, but it's a game that all Koreans in their 40s and older know. The buildings in this area can still be seen today in rural areas of Korea. The building on the right is a coffee shop. On the left is a photography studio. The shops here are closed now, but if you visit in the morning, you can rent 1970s clothing and take a commemorative photo. I've left the palace. I'm currently located on the west side of the palace, walking towards the square to the south. Now I'm going to finish by visiting my favorite spot. This is my personal favorite spot. You can see a traditional building built like an island between the car-only roads in the foreground. That building is called Dongsipjagak. Located at the southeastern end of the palace, it served as a watchtower to monitor intruders. However, as Seoul gradually urbanized, part of the palace grounds were demolished, and a road was built to accommodate cars, leaving the building as an island. What I love most about this place is the beautiful harmony between the old and new architecture. And the sight of people walking around in Hanbok is simply breathtaking. I'm back at Gwanghwamun. This concludes my tour around the palace. Thank you for watching the video.